It's called the last mile for machine learning. You can call it AI squared, it's the name of the company. You can consider it the final connector, or maybe even a truck that makes your deliveries, or a washing machine. We'll explain it all with the CEO right now at the NASDAQ market site. Hello everyone, it's Jabbar Young, senior writer here at Forbes at the NASDAQ market site, and I am joined by the CEO of AI Squared, Dr. Benjamin Harvey. Now, AI Squared is a machine learning, right? And machine learning and AI company takes all of that data and allows companies to make the final decisions of their business outcome. Did I say that correctly?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Dr. Harvey, thank you so much for joining us, man. Appreciate the time.
Excited to be here.
That's great. Well, listen, man, I always start off the month with the theme of the month, right? And this theme of April is Financial Literacy Month. So I will ask you, what's the biggest tip that you can give people about financial literacy? You're a doctor, right? I know you got your PhD, so you better be good.
Awesome. So my background, I've got a PhD in computer science, but I've always had this entrepreneurial mindset, right? And one of the biggest challenges from going from a technical role inside of large enterprise organizations to being able to understand how to, for me, take a technology and understand go-to-market strategies across different organizations, understanding customer segments. So it's like business 101.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with a technical degree, many academic institutions don't really push the aspect of understanding the business side of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So really, when I think about for the younger generation and next generation of entrepreneurs that are out there, it's really important as you think about the explosion of AI to focus on the core technology. But also, if you have any entrepreneurial bone in your body, it's super important to also understand the business aspects, the financial aspects and motivations of organizations as you go to transition from a core technical role to more of a owner of a business and really driving business outcomes.
Yeah. Would you say, if that tip you can give, would it be maybe learning profit loss sheets or anything in financial literacy? What would be the biggest tip in one sentence? What's the biggest tip?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things our investors really focus on are, P&Ls.
P&Ls.
Right? Really being able to understand, that balance statement from end to end, and really being able to create performer projections that can help you understand, how you need to posture your business for ultimate success in the future.
Yeah, now I gotta go back home and read all of my business books, man, because I didn't focus too much on the profit loss. Now I was testing you there to see what you're gonna say. Hey, man, listen, thank you so much again for joining us, and you're kind of coming up here on a Forbes exclusive in a way, right? You guys are just coming off of your Series A fundraise, a $13.8 million raise, and is featuring investors including TIAA CEO Roger Ferguson, along with New Enterprise Associates and Answer Capital, New York-based venture firm here. 13.8 million Series A, total 20 million. You had a 6 million seed round in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Take me inside of this 13.8 million Series A and what AI Squared is going to do in the AI space with this money.
Yeah. Just to start off with a little bit of the journey, kind of where we are now in the movie and how we're going to leverage the resources to really drive us to, that next unicorn.
Yeah.
So really, the impetus of how we came into fruition was really some work that started at the National Security Agency.
Mm-hmm. Where you worked.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. So I was the Chief of Operations Data Science, and I was also the Head of Data Science for the Edward Snowden leaks. And in those positions, what we saw is that 90% of AI and machine learning technologies never made it into a mission production application, mm-hmm. right? So when you think about, there are thousands of data scientists that are actually building world-class artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities and technologies, but when you think about, are they actually coming to life for the business and in the federal government for mission operations? So, we really set on a journey to solve that problem so that we can really get those AI and machine learning technologies out of that experimental sandbox and into the hands of the people in the business, as well as from a mission operation perspective, the analyst and the military warfighter, which are the individuals that ultimately needed those insights the most to, in many situations, help save lives. So, really, where AI Squared is right now, we've been able to do, amazing work where we're solving what we identify as this last mile of AI problem in Fortune 500 financial services organizations. We're working with, great cybersecurity organizations like Rapid7. We're also working with, great organizations like Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. We're also working, across, the CPG landscape with Coca-Cola Florida.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there. We've also been able to amass many federal contracts, from the NSA to the NGA to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NSA, National Security Agency, all the way through to in the Department of Defense, including the Navy as well as the Air Force. So really at this point, it's about how can we take those use cases in these different customer segments and really drive some repeatability in the market. Yeah. So that we can see the ultimate, full commercialization potential of the actual technology. So that includes things like, how can we, expand the product teams? How can we, really build a go-to-market motion, right? When, historically, it was founder-led sales, but now we want to really be able to bring in a CRO, build out a sales team across commercial, strategic, and enterprise reps, and be able to take those use cases in consumer packaged goods, health and life sciences, cybersecurity, and really push to see the extent of the agnostic capability that we built in this last mile platform to really drive business across different customer segments.
Yeah. Now you tell me something. I had my head was spinning. Not now, right? Not now. It's still spinning. Not now. But when me and you first spoke, right, about a week ago, you called me up and we were going through this. And I'm listening, and I turned the volume on the TV down. I'm like, all right, he's sitting on something. I don't know what it is. And I had to go through it all weekend, man. I'm talking to your investors, and I used an analogy, this analogy, that analogy. We settled, right? We settled on the washing machine analogy, right? And so if I had to go deep into your company, because I was telling you, I said, listen, pretend I'm a third grader. How would you tell me what this company is? And we landed on the washing machine now. So you go, you take all this AI data, you take the machine learning, you take the learnings, the yeses from the algorithms, you put it all in a washing machine, right? And you're an investor. I love what he said over at NEA. He said, well, it's not only it's an ultimate superior washing machine, because after you do this, after you wash that data again, the data that we're getting, right, that washing machine then dries it, then it folds the clothes for you, and it stacks it up nice and neat. Whereas the process where we are right now is that companies are washing this data and leaving it on the floor after they wash it, right? There's nothing to do with, and this is where the last mile problem, right? Trying to understand how do we get products, new software, new tech in the hands of our customers and employees, and AI Squared says, hey, we've solved this issue. It's almost like the final connector portion of it, right? Getting the piece of delivery to your house via the truck. I tell people, if you want to be rich, own a trucking company. You can buy nothing without a truck getting it to wherever it needs to get to. Did I describe AI Squared? Is it the washing machine for AI? I said that right?
I love that.
Great. My head is not spinning anymore. Great. I can stop watching The Exorcist. Great. So that is the correct way. It's the washing machine for AI.
I love that analogy.
Great.
And the reason I love it so much is because if you think about, as you mentioned, over the past 5+ years, or the landscape of AI has been really focused on, building these world-class AI and machine learning algorithms, right? But if you think about it, the value for organizations is really leveraging the output of those models, the insights that are being derived from those algorithms to drive the decision-making within the organization. So in order to be able to derive insights, you first need data within the organization, right? But not just data from one place, you need data from multiple places. So the pieces of clothing could come from different parts of the house, right? And in our perspective, the enterprise organization. And we have to be able to reach out to those different places where the data lives, put it inside of this washing machine with the algorithms, and then we're pushing out the insights. But as you mentioned, right, we're just not providing the insights to the end user or to the customer. We are actually, when you think about the contextualization that's associated with making actionable decisions. We're, providing it in a timely fashion. We're providing it where, you have additional visualizations to really help guide you in making the right decision. So the analogy is perfect because we start with multiple sources of information, multiple models. We condense it down as we're churning and pulling out the insights, and we deliver those directly to that customer.
Absolutely. Listen, as you enter from growth stage, right, or from venture stage to growth stage, I mean, not profitable yet, hope to be there one day soon. What's the biggest positive surprise, right? Because now you're the CEO of a company, get into your background a little bit because it's quite impressive. But what's the biggest positive surprise that you've had and that you've learned running AI Squared as CEO?
Yeah. I think through this journey, one of the things that you learn is there's going to be so many things that happen that just go wrong during the entrepreneurial journey. And for me, I started, with a PhD in computer science from Bowie State University. I went to Harvard and MIT for some postgraduate work where I focused on, building world-class AI and machine learning algorithms across large-scale cancer genomics data sets. And I ultimately ended up being recruited by the NSA, and I started a career as a federal civilian servant. And ultimately for me, the transition from the federal government to a Silicon Valley startup, right? Because I knew all about problem mission fit in the federal government, but I had no idea what it means to actually incubate a technology, commercialize it, and ultimately go to market with it from a product market fit perspective, right? So for myself, one of the biggest challenges, but also the biggest opportunity, was to start a process where you're learning and you're having to put those lessons into action as quickly as possible so that you can ultimately drive the success of a business, right? And working at Databricks, a shout out to Matej Zarya, Ali Ghosi, Jan Stoica, Arsalan, who were some of the co-founders that helped me, and I call Databricks University, right? Because they ultimately taught me what was necessary to incubate a technology, commercialize it, go to market with it, build out awesome sales teams, go to market motions, product teams that could ultimately help you build a billion-dollar unicorn, right? So, the challenge was getting enough courage to leave the federal government, but I landed in an awesome organization working with the co-founders at Databricks, and Databricks University taught me everything that I needed to know to ultimately be successful at AI Squared.
Yeah. So would you say that positive surprise was the fact that the transition was a little smoother than maybe you anticipated?
Great point. 100%. I mean, for me, one of the things that I was able to do with Matej Zarya, who's the CTO at Databricks, I sat down with him and I was able to tell him a little bit about the idea that I had, and he thought it had huge implications with regards to the last mile and how Databricks builds world-class models, and they want to make sure that the insights are actually being derived for their customers as well, right? So with that, Matej helped me make the right connections to A16Z, No Enterprise Associates, as well as Battery, and ultimately that journey was streamlined because of the proximity that I had in Silicon Valley, the network of individuals that I met, and ultimately the advice, as well as the direct connections that they provided for me to the right investors. And ultimately Pete Sonsini from New Enterprise Associates, he ended up leading our seed round of funding.
Yeah, it was Steve Jobs' lawyer's son.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Pete Sonsini.
You got it.
What's it like being a CEO of a company?
Wow, that's such an amazing question. So it's not easy. I'll tell you that, right? And also from the outside looking in, you don't see the challenges, but also the amount of grit, the passion, the desire that's necessary from a day-to-day basis, and the relentless execution, right? I learned that from Ali Ghosi at Databricks, the relentless execution that's necessary to be able to drive and build the next unicorn every single day, from whether or not it's the product teams to the engineering part of the organization to the sales and go to market. The first, 7 figures of revenue that we created was founder-led sales, right? So, I tell a lot of the, entrepreneurs that are interested in trying to, raise 20 plus millions of dollars like we did, like, look, if you can't close the first 10 deals within an organization yourself getting started, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to see the full potential of where you want to go. So you have to take on the persona of a sales engineer, but also be as good as on the innovation side as necessary to be able to drive the organization. And when you think about those different facets, a CEO has to have intimate knowledge of every single area well enough to be able to help the organization have a vision, right? And really staying true to that vision, no matter what adversity comes your way, what challenges, staying true to that vision, right? Because that vision is what's going to lead the organization, and you can't waver. You can't falter on that vision as well.
Yeah. Well, let's reflect on your vision a little bit, man. Talk a little bit about your background. You grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, right? One of 7 kids, 5 brothers and 1 sister. What was it like growing up in Jacksonville? What was that like?
Wow, we call Jacksonville, Florida. If you ask people in the city, the
home of the Jaguars?
The home of the Jaguars. We won't go there today. But the analogy is, they reference it as Jack and Kill Florida.
Wow.
Right? And the reason for that is because, it for many years has been the murder capital of Florida, right? So when you think about my background, I come from a socioeconomically disadvantaged background, where, I can remember one tax season, my parents did taxes and, they made $13,000 in a year, right? But all of those challenges, built the character that I have today, which ultimately, helps you have the compassion and the empathy as a CEO, right? That's necessary for you to build a great company.
Yeah. As a kid sitting there, I know you said your dad used to work at AT&T, if I'm not mistaken, and he used to bring home these computers. He used to sit there and fix them and, just get immersed in that world. But I say, even as a child, you did that. You had to watch cartoons, right? What was your favorite cartoon as a kid? Inspector Gadget? What was Inspector Gadget? Putting together devices?
I'd say, unfortunately, I didn't watch a lot of TV.
Wow.
Right, as a child. But when I did, one of the things that I really liked, I really liked, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Why Sonic? What stood out about Sonic?
Sonic was really cool for me because of the speed and the pace that he would run at in order to get things done.
Yeah.
Right? And, for myself, I take on that, that element of, drive. You can ask any of the employees in my organization, right, who the hardest working individual is, and they're going to say, Dr. Harvey does not sleep, right? And the reason that, I take on that aspect is because the team and the organization, right, they feed off of the energy, right, of the CEO. And I try to make sure that they understand the passion that I have, the grit, the will, the desire, and really, that those attributes, are the same attributes that I used to see as a young kid watching Sonic the Hedgehog as well.
Wow. 2009, man, you go really fast, right fast. Mississippi Valley State University, you graduated from there, right? You went on a football scholarship, Jerry Rice, his alma mater, played football and basketball. No NFL, no NBA, why not?
That is another level with regards to, how good of a player that you have to be to cross that chasm. So, I was better at basketball than I was at football, but as a 6'1" cornerback versus a 6'1" point guard, you have a better shot at making it to the league, right, to the NBA or the NFL, specifically the NFL, as a 6'1" cornerback, right? Yeah. So for me, the opportunity was, how do I get out of Jacksonville, Florida, right?
Yeah.
And leveraging a full athletic scholarship to do so, while focused on a double major in computer science and pre-med, right? Which is really hard, right? Yeah. So ultimately, it was an opportunity for me, but at the same time, the NFL and the NBA was really far-fetched. But when I was a senior at Mississippi Valley State University, I had an opportunity to either pursue my senior year of sports, playing both basketball and football, or take a full year at Harvard and MIT in Harvard MIT HST, which is the Health and Science Technology Division.
Yeah. Which one did you pick?
I ultimately, even though I love the NBA and the NFL, I ended up choosing the Harvard MIT program.
Yeah.
And without that program, I wouldn't be here where I'm at today.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that goes from, you go to Bowie State, right, and you get your master's and your PhD, stay within the HBCU. But I want to fast forward your time to, you mentioned it earlier, NSA, right, National Security Agency, because there you were able to help lead the data scientists right there and be able to transfer that real-time data science and that analytics, right? And you saw that lapse between getting that information to your brothers, who are two military personnel. Yes. One is a captain, one is a major, right? So you're seeing firsthand behind the scenes in the NSA about that lapse in information, which is where AI Squared was kind of conceptualized. Where are you, right? Are you sitting at home listening to Sade, drinking wine? Like, what's going through your head to make you say, hey, I can come up with a company that can solve this?
It really goes back to the point that when I was at the National Security Agency, as Chief of Operations Data Science. So I ran data science for the entire operations directorate. It takes a lot of passion in order to think that you could come up with just an idea and ultimately make it come to life and create a technology that's dual purpose in a way that could serve ultimately industry and the federal government. But the passion that I had behind solving that problem was because of Jeremiah Harvey and Joseph Harvey, which are my two brothers that were deployed to Southwest Asia and the Middle East. And ultimately, as the Chief of Operations Data Science, it was so important for me to try to figure out how could we accelerate and simplify how these AI and machine learning algorithm insights are actually being utilized by the intelligence community analysts and the military warfighter in the field, right? And if you think about my brothers, the insights that we could potentially gather could directly provide them with the information necessary to save lives.
Yeah.
So understanding that problem and understanding how 90% of what the data scientists were building in the organization never made it into a mission production application, ultimately was sitting on the shelf, is when I made the decision to say, hey, not only am I going to build a small prototype inside of the organization that could solve the temporary, but I'm also going to create a company that could ultimately solve the larger problem for enterprise organizations as well as federal enterprise organizations. And ultimately, one of the cool things is AI Squared currently has a cooperative research and development agreement back with the National Security Agency where we're scaling out to multiple use cases within that organization.
Yeah, I was talking to one of your investors, over at Answer Capital, and he's telling me, he's like, it's almost like they've solved the problem that pharmaceuticals solved a long time ago, right? Imagine making all of these pharmaceutical drugs, these amazing drugs, and having no way to deploy them or distribute them, right? This is what AI Squared is doing with all of that information. But, your dark period was one I think would probably stand out amongst entrepreneurs because we were talking, you take out a $20,000 credit card, right? You beg your wife to tap into that $500,000 retirement account, right? So that way you can build the prototype and then fund AI Squared. And then you get tapped out, right? And you have to go and you have to reinvent yourself from a mentality standpoint, because when you're running out of money and you got people that supporting you and they're relying on you and you got this idea, things can get rough, man. What did you learn about yourself in that dark period?
Wow, entrepreneurs call it the valley of the shadow of death, right? And that's when, for AI Squared as an organization, it was before the venture capital funding.
Yeah.
And it was, how can we showcase that we have some traction and showcase that we can bring in some early revenue to actually even get the first dollars of venture capital, right, or venture funding. And during that process, as you mentioned, the credit cards, and shout out to the wife, the retirement that I cashed out to ultimately support the early developers inside of the organization. And we still came to a point where, the challenge is the mentality coming from the federal background is you think about how can you develop a company and build a company grassroots, right? So the mentality change was when we hit the valley of the shadow of death where we ran out of cash, no more runway, we hit our cash out date, and you're starting to have conversations with different employees about, hey, we may only be able to go, the next couple of months before we have to hang it up. And going from there to getting your back against the wall where you have to make a decision, and that decision was really, calling, Matej Zarya and telling Matej, look, we've got this idea, we think it has huge commercialization potential, please help us, right? And Matej making the connection to the, A16Zs, the NEAs, the batteries, the tier one venture capital investment organizations that ultimately helped us get funding. But, that valley of the shadow of death was really the point where you have to evolve, right? It's about evolution. And that's what I tell the young generation of entrepreneurs. There's gonna be a point where in order for you to be successful, you're gonna have to evolve as an entrepreneur. And that evolution is actually what's gonna take you to the next level in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, you guys kind of hit the scene before the Chat GPT wave, right? One of your investors kind of, brought that up, but also you're entering a time now where money is tight, right? It's not like it's not a lot out of there. There's a lot of dry powder out there. Investors are a little bit more conservative, higher interest rates, and just being a little bit more tight with their money. How were you guys able to go and raise a Series A? Like, what did you say that was so convincing to them? Because investors are currently, they're always saying, no, this is not going to work. Telling you why it's not going to work. But you guys ultimately, again, you get through a Series A for that.
Yeah.
How'd you do it?
I mean, if you think about right now, we're in this, last year, right, where organizations have spent tens of millions of dollars building these generative AI technologies or these large language models that are ultimately, these very large algorithms, right? And these very large algorithms are, trained on the universe of data on the internet, but there's a aspect of, reinforcement learning with human feedback. But it's essentially, if you're using ChatGPT for an example, it's essentially the opportunity for you to provide feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down, is the answer correct, is it wrong? And that feedback ultimately is also what the algorithm suppliers use to tune the model to increase the accuracy and performance, right? So there was really a couple things on the AI squared side that we were doing, right? It's really about, now that you have these very powerful generative AI large language models from these different algorithm providers, how do you first, when you think about the gold rush, it was the picks, the axes, and the shovels, right? So it's the same thing with AI squared, right? We're the picks, pick the axe, the shovel that's associated with how do you accelerate how the insights from these, very large language models are integrated inside of applications. And then the second thing, which is really important, is how do you start to leverage the feedback from the human in the loop to increase the accuracy and performance of the model in the workflows of the business.
You got my head spinning again, Doc. No, I'm playing. Hey, listen, man, moving on right fast, I'm get you out of here on some rapid reaction stuff, right? And again, 13.8 million raised, and you guys are going to use this money to operationalize the business, right? And one of your investors, kind of mentioned the fact that what stood out about AI Square was you guys had corporate and government customers, right? You're working with the U.S. Navy, you're working with the Air Force, and a couple of other fintech, financial companies, as you mentioned. But if you break down the AI as a software, as a service sector, AI as a service, I'm assuming that's where you guys fall under, right? And that's software publishing, AI as a service. Is that accurate in that way?
Both, but we do both service from a perspective of once we deploy our technology inside of the organization.
Right.
We empower the organization with the tech, and we also provide the services to help them build out to new use cases as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I will ask you this, and I thought, again, one of your investors said it perfectly. I love talking to any AI. I got to talk to him again. But he kind of mentioned how AI is another democratizing technology, right?
Yes.
And not only that, but it's going to change the way that humans interact with computers forever, right? It's forever going to change where creators are going to have amplifiers. That's what AI is going to be able to do, right? Describe, and I have to ask you, or define, everybody have their own definition, define AI. What is it to Dr. Benjamin Harvey?
Yeah, so when you think about artificial intelligence, there's a couple of different areas that all converge, right? So, think about Amazon Alexa, speech to text and text to speech, right? But also you've got computer vision, right? You've got agent-based technologies. You've got the core aspect of machine learning as well, right? So what you really have is a convergence of multiple technologies that are ultimately providing you with the ability to augment the cognitive decision-making process of humans, right? So it's all about, how do you provide a human with additional insights from a machine learning perspective, but how do you provide a human with the addition to their skill set from a perspective of being able to solve problems with necessary information that comes from an algorithm to supplement their current internal knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I one of the quotes that Ken Griffin, right, the CEO of Citadel, he says, the impact generative AI he was talking about, is going to be call centers, translation work, producing content for Hollywood. So all of that stuff kind of falls under that, man. Advice to entrepreneurs, what would you tell them about AI and what to focus on, software or hardware? And I know you got a love for them both, Doctor, right? Because you're building computers from that. Software or hardware? You're an entrepreneur, you're looking to maybe start something. What do you tell them?
Yeah. I'm a software guy at heart, but we also provide a lot of the communication that's necessary to be able to scale the software on the hardware as well. But when you think about organizations that are starting right now, it's really about the algorithm itself, right? You think about OpenAI, it's about the algorithm, right? They built this large language model that has this powerful algorithm that's providing responses that are associated with anything that you can think of as far as a prompt, right? So the opportunity now for entrepreneurs is to really think about how can you start to personalize those algorithms to really understand individual behavior, whether it's implicit behavior or whether it's explicit behavior. Understand individual behavior so that when you create a prompt and you get a response, it's not just a response that's associated with the world view, but it's a response that directly correlates with not only your behavior but the knowledge that you have as an individual, and it provides you with more of like a co-pilot, right, for a specific individual, right? So when I think about as we talk to the entrepreneurs that are out there, it's really how can you take these large language models, democratize them not only for organizations, but personalize them for the end users that are actually going to be leveraging the results in their workflows.
Yeah, I mean, listen, software, as you said, right, that software publishing, $528 billion sector in the U.S. alone, according to IBIS World. U.S. presidential race, right, last before I get you out of here on Good to Great, without choosing sides, right, what do you want to see or hear from the candidates? You are a CEO of a company, an up-and-coming company, one that we hope matches Databricks, right? It's a $43 billion company according to Forbes. Yes. What do you want to see from the candidates? Hear from the candidates? See?
Yeah, one of the things that's extremely important for enterprise organizations is, how do you create the right policies, the rules, the regulations that can enable organizations to truly foster the AI technologies within the organization. Because many organizations, what happens is that the technology really takes off, but the rules, the policies, and the regulations are a little slower to catch up with the technology. And ultimately, once they go into effect, you have to pull back some features, functionality of the technology to abide with those rules and regulations. So one of the opportunities for us right now is to get ahead, right? Where, whether it's a sandbox where we are starting to, test those models or test these companies' technologies and capabilities so that we can ultimately have an approved set of AI technologies that are ready for the market. But ultimately, we have to be able to get ahead on the AI technology policies, right? The rules, the regulations that are supporting organizations and how they can conduct AI in a trustworthy and an assured manner inside these organizations.
Yeah, European laws are already in full effect, writing AI laws, and again, they may have to scale back over there to kind of make sure that they're, kind of staying within the operating procedures of what the law says. Good to great time, get you out of here. My favorite business book, right? Dr. Jim Collins, I don't know if he's a doctor, but Jim Collins, Good to Great book. What's the difference between a good AI platform and a great one?
A great AI platform is use case agnostic.
Use case agnostic.
Right, meaning that no matter what use case an organization has, it's able to not only handle that use case, right? Whether it's from multiple customer segments, but it's also a platform that connects the algorithm insights to the actual business operations, right? Don't stop short where you're just creating the technologies, but how do you ultimately leverage those insights to support the business or the mission in the federal government, where the results are actionable, they're relevant, they're timely, they're contextualized, and they ultimately enable the adoption, the increased adoption of AI across an enterprise organization.
There you go. Smart, principled risk taker. That's what one of your customers said about you when I was asking, right? Smart, principled risk taker. I said, why? He says, they're not just giving PhDs away, right? So clearly smart. Appreciate the time, Dr. Harvey. Congrats on the raise again, 13.8 million Series A, and you will operationalize the business on this, get a CRO, right? A Chief Revenue Officer, and all of that stuff. Y'all hiring, so I'm assuming now. You got $13 million, you hiring out of a sudden, right?
You got it.
Appreciate it, man. Listen, welcome back. I'll get you back to the NASDAQ market site because AI is the future, and we're going to need all the expertise from you, right? And you're a smart guy, so you're going to prove us right.
You got it.
Appreciate it. Dr. Harvey here at the NASDAQ market site. Thank you for watching.